country, we provided them electronic cargo tracking system. Electronic cargo tracking system using a cloud-based technology and IoT. The trackers put on the vehicles and also electronic seals put on the trucks. The challenge was that they do not have a port, so the goods were coming from another country, which are cleared for that particular country, and they are moved. They supposed to go and get cleared in that country. But a lot of goods are being dumped outside the country without taxes being paid. So once we put the electronic cargo tracking system in place, within the first 6 months of the operation, the customer was able to save millions of dollars. But the challenges were that there was no single source of truth that all the stakeholders could have access to. The moving of information was really taking time, and different phases of information is available to different stakeholders, so there was no unified view. So we have done this proof of value for this customer by putting the entire electronic cargo tracking system on blockchain. The stakeholders that are involved, obviously the revenue authority, the inspection agents, the transporter, the importer, and the financial institution that is involved, and the other local law enforcement authorities, and the warehouses, and at the border, the customs department, which is clearing the goods. After putting the entire system on blockchain, the advantage is that the information is available instantly to all the stakeholders. Because this is a private blockchain, there was no need to have any consensus method here, because all the stakeholders within the blockchain network are vetted and are permissioned. But when there is an electronic handshake between two parties, then there's a regulator involved. So there is a time-stamped and geo-stamped transaction that is put into the blockchain, written into the blockchain, and approved by a third-party stakeholder. This provided information instantly to all the stakeholders, one. Two, for the government organization, the fraud, first of all, when we put the electronic cargo tracking system with the IoT, I think the estimation was about they could cut almost 60% of the fraudulent transactions. So additional 15 to 20% of the fraud was able to curtail when we put the system on blockchain. But commercially, there are three main challenges that came in, which didn't allow the project to scale up to a commercial level. One, other stakeholders apart from the government did not see a great value to be a participant to the entire chain network. So it was by kind of a mandate given by one authority. So some of the fundamental principles we talk about, the equal rights and participating method, was not felt by other stakeholders, so the uptake was not that great. Second one was because one of the participant is an IoT device which is transmitting the information and writing the information to the blockchain network. So there was a lot of dispute saying that no, the cargo did not deviate from a geotagging location, or this was not the right time that the goods were dumped, or this was not the correct timestamp. So there has to be we have to create a proof, we have to create a system that will alert and also show a systematic proof to the stakeholders to convince that it was time consuming and there was a lot of conflict and confrontation was going on. But all in all, the revenue authority still feels that this solution is scalable. Now we are working on the incentive as mechanism for each stakeholder, and also what is the benefit for them and what is the value that they derive. So we are creating incentive system for each stakeholders to voluntarily come into the blockchain so that they also see a value. Each stakeholder will see the value. So that's the next phase of the project that we are moving to. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mohan. Anand. Hope I said that right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Now, may I invite Rosita Zanova? Data in Africa. How safe is data if you're using blockchain technology? That was one of the questions that was raised in the earlier sessions. I hope you'll be able to answer that.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let me try again. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for staying a little bit later today. These are the biggest blockchain and big data enthusiasts in the whole conference. I'm going to just wait until they put the presentation on. Okay, so I move through here. Okay. Perfect. So my name is Rosita. I'm an associate partner and founder of Dalberg Data Insights, which is the big data entity of Dalberg Group, a strategy, design, and advisory firm focused on international development. And I'm here to talk to you a bit about data. In fact, I will try to talk less about data and more about the application of it. Because just like blockchain, data is an enabler for an end goal, but not really the end goal itself, right? So we need to talk more about the real applications behind it rather than the technologies that empower them. So let me start by pointing out 3 facts, since I'm going to be talking about data. And they're actually small data facts, but really important as a segue to the bigger big data conversations. First one is in the agriculture space, and already more than 70% of African farmers have used information and communication technology, with 90% seeing increased overall output productivity. The second one is in the public health space, and it comes from Uganda. In fact, Code 8 is an invention invented by 4 young Ugandans. And it uses a sensor device on a smartphone to diagnose malaria without a blood sample. And the third one will not come as a surprise to anyone, I hope, is about financial inclusion and how it's been on the rise in the continent, here particularly East Africa. What do all these 3 facts have in common? I'll give you a hint. They are not related to the blockchain. In fact, the only thing they have in common, one second, is that they're empowered by a mobile device, a simple mobile device. And I think while the blockchain is still a long way to go to prove the applicability and the impact it can have on the continent, a simple mobile device has proven that point over the last few years. It has proven the direct impact on the livelihoods of people. People now, with the increase and accessibility of simple mobile technology, people could have access to information. Farmers in distant rural areas could have information about best practices to grow seeds, to grow their plants, to have access to weather information, etc., etc. Refugees and migrants can be connected to their loved ones thanks to mobile devices. And people in rural areas could have access to information regarding health. These are some of the direct benefits of mobile technologies, but I'll give you some of the indirect ones. Every time we use our mobile devices, we share a data point. A data point, when all of these data points aggregated and anonymized, they could tell a lot of information about population movements. They could tell information about spending patterns. And all these data points, again, when aggregated and anonymized, could fill data gaps. Data gaps that are quite significant when we talk about the reach of the Sustainable Development Goals. Not only the implementation, but also the monitoring of the Sustainable Development Goals. In fact, the data gap is quite large. On average, data for only 20% of the SDGs is currently available and up to date. So there is no way we could know how far we are and how long we still have to go if we cannot measure properly where we stand. And that's why data is very, very important. I'm going to give you, and of course with the adoption and the advancement of new technologies, data is being passively generated, and that data in anonymized and aggregated manner could be used to monitor some of the SDGs. Data from cell phone devices, data from satellites, and data from sensors. And I'm going to give you a couple of applications. So we, my firm, Dalberg Data Insights, have built a data platform, designed and piloted it. So still in piloting phase. Hopefully it's going to scale in the next few months, years. We've designed a data platform that, this one doesn't work. And what is actually the data platform about is about the aggregation of big and small data sources. Big data sources such as anonymized telecom data, such as images from space, from satellite companies, such as sensors, some of the big data. And then the small data that not many people talk about, but is as essential to monitor anything, and that is surveys, census, administrative data. All of this data is now processed, anonymized, aggregated, and visualized using a data platform. And again, the technology is the enabler, but the most important part is starting from the human-centered approach, knowing who are we building for and why does this actually matter. I'm going to focus on very briefly, three applications around solar and monitoring the off-grid energy space in Uganda, about urban planning in Kampala, and about agriculture, using these new data sources, starting from the first one. So aggregated and anonymized data from the pay-go transactions that is being processed by the mobile operators in Kampala, in Uganda, could actually give a real-time information about the off-grid electricity penetration in the country. That data source is quite essential because, you know, while the census surveys, etc., could come on irregular basis, such data source is real-time and could fill information gaps. And why this is important? Because when investors want to come and invest in the solar space in Uganda, or when policies need to be made, we need to understand what is actually the impact of such policies, and we need to be able to convince investors to come and invest with the power of such data. Second use case is using satellite images to monitor the crop yield in almost real time. This is something we did in northern Uganda. And here, to build any kind of machine learning models, the data scientists in the room will know, we need the small data as well to be able to train the models. And while the satellite images was quite important to be able to scale that to the full area, what we did is we went in the field and collected ground truth information, picked up sorghum and maize from the ground, weighted it, measured it, to be able to collect this small data set that trained the big data sets to be able to monitor the crop yield production of a couple of crops in northern Uganda. And last but not least is the human mobility indicators using anonymized mobile phone data. This is a pilot we did with the Kampala Capital City Authority, and in real time you could see population movements. Again, not individual data because we don't care whether Kwame is moving from A to B. What we do care is how many people move from A to B in real time, which in fact empowered the transportation master plan of Kampala Capital City Authority, which is and has the potential to monitor spread of infectious diseases and many others in the infrastructure space. And while here we are talking about data, we have to really acknowledge that data is a byproduct of digital. And any big data or digital transformation happens not only through technology. We need institutionalization. We need standardization of a lot of the methodologies we've worked on. We need the multi-stakeholder alignments from public, private, and development space. We need partnerships. And last but not least, we do need political will for many of these new technologies that are enablers to an end goal to take place and to really see the real impact of them. With that, thank you, and I'll give right to the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rosita. Thank you. Thank you. And may I now welcome Rodrigo to speak to us about the future of mobility and transportation.
Good afternoon, everyone. I know it's not easy after too much matoke to be still not sleepy as I am. First, it's an honor to be here. I'm really excited. Let me share you two things just before I start. So, everyone knows, everyone hears that, everybody has at least 1, 3, 5%. It's 5% African, right? Because everything started here. Due to data and technology that I love so much, recently I found out that I'm actually 19% African. So I'm really excited that this is my first this is my first time that I'm in Africa, and in the Pearl of Africa, as it's called. So I'm very excited to be here. And the second one is that they've just told me that they legalized applause in Brazil and also here. So whenever you feel like applauding during a presentation, that's okay. They're not going to get you arrested. So let me tell you something. When I think about mobility, and I think about my childhood, everything that I was thinking is, I want to get a car. I want to be free. I want to go everywhere. But then when you grow up and you buy yourself a car and you leave the reseller, that's what you get. Traffic, pollution. And we're not only talking about that. If you're living in any of these places, any of these countries, due to pollution, you're already living less. 16 months, 14 months, 2 years. And that's why we needed to find out a new technology. We needed to think about a technology that was efficient, that was fast, but also was cheap. And that's how we started the Hyperloop. So Elon Musk, let's say 6 years ago, thinking about all the technology that has been proposed there, he named what is actually now the Hyperloop. We reached out to him, we explained what we wanted to do, we wanted to take this further, and he was not interested, so we trademarked the word Hyperloop, we started the whole movement around the world, and we started to actually develop. This is not a very new technology, it's been out there. When you think about the metro system, when you think about the subway system in New York City in 1886 that was being developed was basically what we can actually see as a Hyperloop. Who has ever heard here about the Hyperloop? Please raise your hand. Fair enough. I'm really excited because this is one of the most exciting technologies that you will hear today. So Hyperloop is a new way of being connected. It's a new way of transporting people and goods at the speed of sound, but it's not only fast, it's human-eccentric. It's profitable. Let me show you a very short video. I know that I had before 20 minutes, now I got 10, but I'll make sure that I'm very brief in this presentation. Let's see a very short video that explains how fast we are in the technology in these 6 years.
Imagine a capsule.
Sound, please.
Imagine a capsule that can carry people. Placed inside it, pressure.
I can start again.
Imagine.
No.
Imagine a capsule.
There you go.
Imagine a capsule that can carry people. Placed inside is two. The air removed.
It's probably the train industry trying to not let me make this presentation. No. No audio. But let me move on. So basically what Hyperloop is a capsule that we put inside of a pressurized tube where we remove the air so that we don't have almost any air friction. So we can get to speeds of around 1,200 kilometers an hour, using a passive magnetic levitation that does not require energy. And on top of the whole infrastructure, we use solar panels. So imagine that it's a system that is not only fast and safe, it's also generating energy and distributing energy around the stretch. Now we use a combination of solar panel, regenerative braking, so when the capsule is actually braking, it's generating also energy back to the capsule. In some cases, we also use geothermal, and in some cases, we use as wind. So in most of our feasibility studies that we've been running for the past 6 years, we can say that we can get from 15 to 45% of excess of energy. This is amazing. But most amazing is that we're using a new model. And for me, this is one of the messages that I want to leave here. It's not only about competition nowadays, it's about being collaborative. What the founders found out was, what they thought was, instead of us trying to create this technology all by ourselves, let's bring together our potential suppliers and offer them the chance to actually become founders and creators of this technology. So instead of us, for instance, creating the fuselage of the capsule just by our own, we brought in Carburis, that is the same company that is manufacturing the fuselage for the Airbus. For the vacuum, we brought in Label, that is the company that invented the vacuum pump. So imagine that we are now over 45 huge multinational companies that are creating this right now. And it's all, the main point was, these companies and these engineers that wanted to work for us, they would work in exchange of stock options. So imagine that even before we raised 1 penny for the company, we already had 70,000 hours of skilled engineers working with us. This is actually now being taught by Harvard, how our company has applied this technology, and we are applying this model to create the company all around the world. We are right now 45 employees, full-time employees, but we are over 1,000 scientists that are still working on their day jobs, but they're also working for us part-time. They're investing 1 hour, 2 hours, 5 hours a week, and they're still contributing to the success of the company. Right now, as I said, we're over 45 of these amazing partners that are building this company with us. The Hyperloop is happening now. This is not the future. We're building the future now. You'll see in the next 4, 5 years, people traveling on a Hyperloop. But how far are we in this technology? And I hope we can try to have the sound again. Let's see. You can try to put a play there, yeah.
An idea can be a small, fleeting thing, an inkling worth protecting. Because at any moment, the slightest breeze blows an idea off course. But the world's first passenger-ready Hyperloop cannot be blown off course. And 320 meters of tube, anchored to the Earth at the Francazal Air Force Base, is anything but small. This is not an idea. This is a reality, happening in Toulouse, France. From there, our capsule will race across the Earth, connecting countries in a matter of minutes. Let the word go out. Hyperloop Transportation Technologies has begun testing in Toulouse. In the most real, category-defining, forward-charging sense of the word. This actual capsule, these actual pumps, in this actual place. The world's first full-scale Hyperloop system. And from here, what started as an idea is racing to life.
This is when you can applaud. We had amazing milestones throughout the 6 years. When we think about a transportation mode, the first thing you got to think is safety. So we've been thinking about safety from day one. That's why we've been working with the main regulatory and certification bodies from day one. Last year, we had some very important reports on our technology. One of them was from TÜV that is one of the biggest certification company in the world that it's showing that a technology is certifiable. The second one was Munich Re, one of the biggest reinsurance companies in the world that has reported that the technology is insurable. Those are two very important milestones that are necessary for any mode of transport that is being created. Right now we have projects in 12 countries. 3 of them are actually to build commercial lines, one in Ukraine, one in China, and one in the UAE. And of course, the research and development facility that you just saw is the 1.5 kilometers that we are building in France with the help of the French government. That's going to be ready by the end of this year. And by next year, we have it certified and insured, and we'll have the first human travels happening. So we're very, very excited. Some of the other developments we already delivered as well, the regulatory framework for the European Union. We are planning to hit ground next year in Abu Dhabi to build the first 10 kilometers. We are doing a very important feasibility study with 23 institutions, including NASA in the US, to connect Chicago to Cleveland. Actually, in the past weeks, another state has just joined. And also, it was announced by the Secretary of Transport, Chow, a council in the US, inside the Department of Transport, just to work on the regulatory framework for Hyperloops and autonomous vehicles. We were hosting them, the Department of Transport of the US, in the past 2 weeks. I was hosting them with our chairman and co-founder, and they announced actually last Thursday that it was approved $5 million to actually invest in the regulatory framework and make this even faster. So that was another very important milestone for us. And recently, we also signed a partnership with the Port of Hamburg to develop our technology applied to ports. So imagine that nowadays, in the future, you won't be needed the port to actually be in the shore. You can have it anywhere you want, traveling at the speed of sound. Again. And of course, we're developing this around the world. We've also been present in the parliament in Australia, showcasing the technology. We're now teaching and showing that to the world that this is not a dream. We're actually building now, as I said. How does our business model work? Rodrigo, are you guys building everything? No, we're not. Our focus is to develop technologies for mobility. We are a technology, we license the technology. We don't want to build, we don't want to operate. We actually use local companies. We focus on developing the technology, taking them also always to the next stage, and integrating all this together. So we are what we call a network orchestrator. So we're in the top line of profitability. So as I said, we're a technology creator, we're an asset-light company, and a network orchestrator. This is the other message that I want to leave to you is, no matter the market, you should always focus on the problem. Because the biggest problem that we see companies failing and dying, is because we're always trying to make sure that our products are sold. If you start thinking about the problem, if you focus on the problem, which is mobility, it won't matter if now it's a car, if it tomorrow is a Hyperloop. You always be in spearheading technology. So this is very, very important. And the last short video that I wanted to leave with you, that puts together the reason why I'm so passionate about this company. That is not only bringing a revolution for making this technology accessible, cheap, fast, and safe, but it's also bringing a new mode of creating companies that is not competitive, but it's collaborative to actually solve the biggest problems of humanity. I'll let you click like last time. No, let me go back. transport. It's like a 1-minute video. There you go.
Je m'appelle Henriette Ardouin et j'habite à Bagnères de Luchon. Je suis l'une des femmes les plus âgées de France. J'ai peut-être un peu de compétition. Je suis née avant que les hommes se déplacent rapidement. Je me rappelle des premières voitures. J'ai assisté à la disparition du Earth, le mur du son, l'Américain qui est un grand défi. Je me rappelle de mon père. Cet engin ne va jamais décoller du sol. Cette machine, vous l'avez construit, n'est-ce pas? C'est quoi son nom déjà? Hyperloop TT.
Seconds, I promise. When I was 15, I promised my parents that I was going to change the world. And after 7 years that I worked for multinational companies in the transportation sector, as a coincidence, then I tried to found 3 companies. 4 years ago, when I sold my last company, and I was at this event thinking about which kind of project that I can work with, I literally bumped into this one of the most inspiring person that I ever met, which is Bebop Ressa, the founder. And when he was telling me about this technology, I was like, this is too Jetsons. This is not going to work. This is too futuristic. And when he told me to be able to give accessibility to people through mobility, and he said, and I will never forget that, he said, imagine what we can do with this technology in countries like in Africa. How we can actually give this to people and bring access to people. This could actually change the world. This could actually change Africa. And that's what really hooked me. So honored to be here. So honored to be among you guys. And if you want to talk to me, I'll be here. Thank you so much.
Definitely leaving a dent in the world and seeing what you're thinking about and you want to do is simply phenomenal. Now, as expected, we have had to make an adjustment and have every reason for people to stay a little bit longer at the cocktail. So I am going to request you to take your seats. People who have questions will find you at the cocktail and ask very specific questions to you. I hope that is acceptable to us. So let's give them another round of applause. Now, one last panel, and it's a conversation that is going to be done with the UN. But before that, I'll like to ask the team to show one video from one of our key sponsors. And then I am going to invite Dr. Lilian Nabulime to come and speak to us briefly. And we'll have the last panel, the UN panel, in about 20 or so minutes. And then we can go and do what we all need to do. The beer is there, I have confirmed. The brewers are telling me something. What is happening?
Peter has it. Vicky has it. Steven has it too. For Peter, it comes when he's in the comfort of his home, enjoying entertainment courtesy of reliable internet connectivity. Vicky gets it when conveniently ordering new stock for her boutique online. For Stephen, it comes every time he takes a seat at work. There it is, that smile. A sign of confidence and satisfaction. Knowing you've got a reliable internet connection for your home, your office, and your business. Get internet that works from MTN Business. It's a fast, reliable, and affordable connection powered by our countrywide fiber broadband network. Visit an MTN service center near you and let's talk.
So MTN, thank you very much for enabling us to talk, and I'm pretty sure all the things are powered over the network. So let me invite Dr. Lillian Navulime, a senior lecturer at Makerere University. She'll speak to us in about 10 minutes, and then the panel that comes after will specifically deal on linking the SDGs and the fourth industrial revolution. And that should happen right after Lillian's presentation.
Hello, Lillian Navulime, Dr. Lillian Navulime, lecturer in the School of Fine Art, and I'm mainly a sculptor. So when I was invited to this conference, I said, what am I going to present? Well, I'm going to show you what I do, and maybe in the end we can see how we can move on. Well, those are my sculptures. That is what I did in when I was doing my master's. I'm a wood carver, and I have enjoyed making sculptures from tree roots. Those are tree roots. Afterwards, I moved to other forms, the beauty, and I'm enjoying women. I enjoy making sculptures of women. Here I combine metals and wood. Aluminium, tall elongated poles. Some of these sculptures or wood, people have no interest, but I take advantage and I make beauty out of them. And I enjoy working on large sculpture pieces. I enjoy really to extend my ability to any form of wood. Those are wooden sculptures. Those cannot even be lifted by one or two people. You need sometimes cranes, metal and wood. And that is ficus, that is which usually goes around our tree roots. And sometimes I'm making of found objects. Many of Uganda is losing a lot of trees due to the to industrialization, but I secure some of these pieces and I make beautiful pieces. And I know once some of these pieces will never exist. I've traveled a lot, Denmark. I'm in workshops sometimes. Well, my life turned around because I kept on enjoying sculptures, but then I was challenged by also working on issues that affect society. I was affected by HIV/AIDS. My husband lived with HIV/AIDS, and I had to transform from what I developed to develop sculptures that can help us communicate HIV/AIDS. I don't live with HIV/AIDS, but I was attached, and because once HIV/AIDS comes into your family, you are all assumed that you are sick. But when I got an opportunity to go to the University of Newcastle, I produced sculptures that can communicate HIV/AIDS. My supervisors were surprised. I said, you are not a scientist, you are not a healthy person. I said, yeah, that is the problem affecting me. And my first sculptures were developed from bark cloth, which is a natural material, which is also part of my heart. And I used those sculptures with paper mache, and the first piece I produced came out rotten, and when I produced another one, came out very nicely. And then when I put the two pieces together, they were telling me that we have to care for people living with HIV/AIDS. And by that time, I kept on thinking about HIV/AIDS, how it had affected us. my family, because we have one daughter, and I kept on thinking about my cultures. How could I communicate HIV/AIDS through my sculptures? That is the mortar and pestle. So, and the mortar is the woman, and the pestle is the man. But by that time, I producing that sculpture, the female condom had come on market. So inside, the sculpture is lined with copper, and outside it was not easy to make that piece. And my supervisors realized there was no progress. They said, you should get with a group of women living with HIV/AIDS. So I was able to get a group in London, and then I had to interview them and ask them how they felt about the disease. Well, they told me they had come to the UK, their lives had transformed. So I could express that by the lipstick and the hairdo. And then they said, much as they were in Europe, they were still struggling. And below are the pieces of wood, which shows that much as they are moving on in life, but they have to worry about their children. And then, much as I was working with wood, but then I had to transform how I could use materials to communicate HIV/AIDS. And I looked at the woman that we are containers. Well, we are receivers, but then our bodies are porous. They allow fluids and disease. So one of the baskets has nails, which I was relating to disease and suffering, and then another has latex, which I was relating to using latex. That is if the women have the chance to use protection. And then I was also looking at the usual activities women use in our village, we have used in the villages, winnowing. And then winnowing, I was looking at the various subject matters. The cowrie shells represent money. Then that was telling about the prostitution. And then also interviewing the women. Then I told them, well, if you are into prostitution, then you have to use protection. And then sometimes the women were also telling, oh, we are still engaged in sex. I said, oh my God, then you have to use protection. So winnowing is about the lifestyles of women and their vulnerability. And this piece, which now is in Denmark, was trying to show that is the most sensitive area of a woman. But it is beautiful. Of course, women are beautiful and they have to care about themselves, but as well as minding about their lives. So when I was doing that research in the UK, and the women told me they didn't want more of HIV. I asked them, do you want more information about HIV/AIDS? They said, no. I said, oh. My years I've spent in the UK studying, they said, no. Well, I said, now, I realized that those who needed HIV/AIDS information were the Ugandans. And when I came back to Uganda, I took photographs of the earlier work you'd seen. And then when I reached in one of the organizations I interviewed, which was in Mbuya and Nakola, the women said they didn't know what sculpture was all about. And I said, oh my God. So then I went to the organizations which were working with HIV/AIDS, 13 of them. They said, no, we can't use HIV/AIDS. I said, why? Because your sculptures are big, they are not easily movable. And I said, what kind of sculptures do you want? As they told me, they wanted sculptures which are you can easily move around, which are interactive, which are meaningful. I said, okay. So I went back to the UK and made more developments. Those are my models in clay, they're small. And then I had to think what material, because each material you have to use has to be meaningful. And this material I came up across, I remember when I was taking a plane to the UK, I asked my mother, which is the cheapest material in Uganda? She said soap. Everybody in Uganda uses soap. I said, okay. So when I arrived in the UK, I made many experiments, but then I had to come up with a material, which was soap, transparent soap. That is, I could easily get it in the UK. And then I also remembered the form also matters, because when you're talking about HIV/AIDS in Uganda, you also have to talk about how people get it. Mainly it is through the private areas. I said, okay. Then I remember making a model in abstract, a male and a female organ. And then when I put the cowrie shells, really, well, you can think what you want. And then I was able to embed objects into them. And for me, they were colorful, interesting. And I said, this is the piece I have to take to Uganda. Of course, my pieces were registered in the UK and Uganda. And then I had also to think how much as these are small sculptures, but I have to engage people into them. So that was maybe chess, life is a game. Family, we are on the family, we don't know who has HIV/AIDS. So then I came back to the Uganda, and I was able to take these sculptures to the people, especially these were people who were not highly educated. And at first, they were the women who were living with HIV/AIDS. And when I showed them the sculptures, I asked them, what do you think? Because I also wasn't sure their reaction would be. They said, ooh. And I said, well, these are human organs. I said, now? Well, what do you think? They said, well, regarding to disease. Then they started telling me about infection and how the disease had affected them. They even told me about the CD4 counts, blah, blah. And for me, that meant that through sculpture, we can communicate issues that we cannot even, the taboos, because here we don't talk about these sex and sexual issues publicly, and that could be the reason why we are having more infection. But still, through these soft sculptures, the women were able to talk. And through their less education, they were still able to interpret HIV/AIDS. So we had wonderful stories, and I kept on taking them to the villages. And I remember one time, because I had to feature in the newspaper, because my supervisor said, if your sculptures are communicating, please bring evidence they are communicating. So the newspaper had to interpret. And then, of course, that is some of the soap sculptures are the sculptures which have been used, which I realized that I could use them to interpret, communicate issues that affect women. But it was also an experience that as a sculptor, I can work with other materials. And at the same time, we also have, we can also add other materials. We can add sound, video, so that much as I'm a woodcarver, I can incorporate my sculptures with other materials. Now here comes blockchain. So what we really, I think we artists would need from blockchain is intellectual protection. But at the same time, from what I've heard from these speeches today, that means we sculptors, we have to think of other skills, how to move on with our art. I think that is all. Thank you.
Another round of applause. Now, some people might be asking, so what is blockchain about this? There are multiple possibilities that we can get to work with people like Lillian to be able to continue the good works that she's able to do, because right now it is hard work and hard labor to get one sculpture up. And so we are not having this session on the 4IR use cases, the panel session. Allow me take you to the last session, and that is going to be moderated by the resident representative, UNDP in Uganda, and that is Elsie Atafua. Please come and take your seat, and you will invite your colleagues in the UN to come up. And if we can do it in about 20 or so minutes, that will be awesome. And I'm told Nile Breweries has a full truck of beer out there, so please make sure you're hydrated enough for the next session.
Hello, everybody. I need some energy. Hello, everybody. So thank you again for the invitation. My name is Elsie Atefa. I'm the resident representative for the United Nations Development Program. And we're going to be talking about a very exciting topic. I'm going to keep it sweet and short. And it's about linking the Sustainable Development Goals to the fourth industrial revolution. Now, I'll quickly invite the panelists here so we can be quick. We only have 15 to 20 minutes. So let me invite Mr. Silas Labedo. Please, a round of applause for him. Miss Athena Yu. A round of applause for her. And Mr. Neil Majok. All right. Is Neil here? Okay, all right. I think I heard you earlier on, so please, yeah. Okay, so what is exciting about this topic is that everything I've been hearing this afternoon is about the Sustainable Development Goals. So quite frankly, I think a lot of the panel has been sort of discussed by you already. But let me just try to give it some context, and then we can have some discussions with the panel members. What are the Sustainable Development Goals, and why is the fourth industrial revolution so pertinent and so important? The goals have become popularly known as the Agenda 2030. 193 governments, including Uganda, signed off on it. And these are very bold and ambitious targets, 17 of them that us in the world have applied ourselves to implement. They border on poverty reduction, poverty eradication, to education, to gender, to climate change, to energy, to consumption, economic growth, peace and security, partnerships, everything that you can think about. And in the UN, our own Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, has also emphasized that the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals cannot be achieved without looking at issues of technology, science, and innovation. And that is why it's important, okay? So critically, the fourth industrial revolution provides us with opportunities to create, to connect knowledge, to address complex development challenges in the world. What do I mean? I listened to a number of you today, from agriculture to energy, to environment. I mean, we can now use satellite images to see how we are deforesting our countries, the impact. We've seen communities use mobile phones to be able to check how deforestation is going on. We've seen countries like Ghana use drone technology to supply medical equipment, impacting over 20 million people. We've seen so many things happening, and this is why it is important for us. But whilst we recognize that these things are important, we also recognize there are risks and there are trade-offs. In other words, you could be creating some technology of a kind, but you might be creating inequality. And the Sustainable Development Goals talks about leave no one behind. So it's important for us as we reflect about the opportunities, we also look at the risk, and we also look at the trade-offs. This afternoon I have 3 colleagues here, a number of my UN colleagues. Unfortunately, the timing didn't suit us. We have other events as well. So somehow I'll be talking about some of our interventions as UN, but we do have colleagues here who would be sharing some reflections from the UN point of view, but as well as their own interactions with the UN. And I'm going to start off, let me just come closer to you now. I'm going to start off now with you, Silas. Silas has been working with the UN's Pulse Lab. He's going to explain to us. But what I wanted to ask you, Silas, is, what are the drivers or the triggers for Africa to really take these opportunities forward? What do we need to envisage? What do we need to plan for? Because it's quite important that we take advantage and upscale some of these technologies that we're talking about. From where you sit, what do you see?
Thank you, Ara, and thank you all for being here. I'm Silas Labedo, Senior Data Engineer at Pulse Lab. I'm here representing my manager, Paula Hildago Sanchez. And a brief background on Pulse Lab. Pulse Lab is one of 3 labs globally under the UN Global Pulse. And the UN Global Pulse is an initiative of the Secretary General that was started in the aftermath of the global financial crisis. I think all of us remember that. And during that crisis and after, scientists were able to show that there were digital signals out there which, if governments had tapped into and relevant policies developed, potentially that global financial crisis could have been averted. And as a result, the SG envisioned that the UN needs to be able to tap into these digital data sources that could be used to inform policy, to enable planning and emergency response. And that gave the rise to the Pulse Labs, of which Pulse Lab Kampala is the only one in Africa. So in terms of the drivers, one of the things that we've learned over the years that we've been here, and rightly so, some of the panelists have hinted on them. For instance, we work with governments to create an enabling environment. And what that means is that when you're dealing with these digital data sources, when you go to these data providers, they would want to deal with you in a legal regime which enables them to give you that data, so that the sharing and participation in that data collaborative is bound by the prevailing laws. And in that context, we worked with the government of Uganda to help draft the Data Protection and Privacy Act. We helped the members of parliament build their capacities in understanding issues of privacy and ethics by sponsoring them to one of the conferences we organized with data privacy and protection experts in Mauritius, and we invited some of them to also brief the members of parliament here in Entebbe. And we also we are also currently working with the government of Ghana to build a data privacy and ethics framework for the entire African continent, since Pulse Lab Kampala is the only lab doing this on the African continent. So we stretch our arm across the entire continent to try and build this environment and culture, that environment of ethical data sharing. And also, if you remember what one of the presenters mentioned, our SDGs there's only about 20% data. There's data for only about 20% of the SDG indicators. So in all of this, the SG realized that to track and monitor these SDGs, most of the data is in the hands of private actors. And we need to create that environment and build their confidence to share their data with us in the UN, as well as with government and other development partners, so that we can better plan for these SDGs and respond to emerging emergencies. Thank you.
All right, so thank you very much, Silas. So 3 quick points from him. The importance of creating an enabling environment, which is very key for us to go to scale on some of these things. He's also talked about the fact that we should also create opportunities for South-to-South cooperation, which is great, and the importance of evidence to support decision-making around development. All right. So, Athena, I'm just going to come to you next. Athena has been the executive director of Binance Charity Foundation, a blockchain-enabled charity platform, official philanthropic arm of the Global Cryptocurrency Exchange. And she's done a lot of work also with the public sector, private sector, as well as with the United Nations. And I just wanted you to share your reflections about the role of public-private partnerships in really advancing the 4th Industrial Revolution.
Okay, thank you. So today, I think the topic is about Sustainable Development Goal, how the private sector, like us, really help to drive the Sustainable Development Goals set by UN. So actually, I think the essence of the Sustainable Development Goal really goes to the human's value, and also the equality, and also the financial inclusion. And of course, in Africa, I think the big issue is about the employment, how we give the young people jobs, and how we empower them with work and salary and decent, life. So actually, in the past, as I share with you, Before I joined in Binance, actually I was a co-founder of an NGO under UNDP, so to support Africa's industrialization. Our old approach was really to build some industrial parks in Africa and to bring some manufacturers sectors into Africa to really give the young people jobs. But now, in the new era of the fourth industrial revolution, we have been asking ourselves, is there another way that we can really leverage technology and really can utilize the power from the private sector and to really help Africa to really leapfrog? So parallel to the old approach, we are taking a new approach, which is to leverage blockchain, which is the most cutting-edge technology to help African countries, especially the young people, to really help them to get access to the financial and social services empowered by the blockchain-powered ecosystem. So that is what the Binance and Binance Charity together is doing. So because in the past, what we have observed is that we see trillions of dollars really flow into Africa every year, but actually the people in the bottom of the pyramid, they cannot really get a share, or a lot of money really spent in the middle, a lot of money really to support people sitting in the office, and the intermediary, they take the money, and eventually the people who are in most need, they cannot really get the full amount of the money they really need. So we think that actually blockchain and cryptocurrency can really, really set up a fundamental infrastructure for those unbanked and underbanked people to really get access to the financial services. So the people who have been previously invisible to the world, they can be visible. And we can set up an infrastructure for them in a very decentralized manner, so that imagine that if I'm the rich people sitting in the United States or China, if I want to send money to a girl in Africa, in the past, we cannot really achieve that because there are too many intermediaries in the middle who help us to deliver the delivery, to convert the money, and also to deliver the good. But eventually, because of the long flow, the money cannot really get to the end beneficiaries in need. But now, actually, Binance Charity, we established a blockchain-enabled system which can enable the 100% transparent donation flow, and all the money you want to send and could be demonstrated in a fully transparent manner on the blockchain, and all the data, all the records are really safely stored on the blockchain. So everyone in the world who have access to the cryptocurrency can really send the money directly to the people in Africa in need. And at the meantime, all the flows are really traceable, and you can see it is because they can see the flow directly to the end beneficiaries instead of any third parties. So actually, as the private sector, we are not only outlining a very good vision, but we are actually in action. So just very happy to share that in Africa, especially in Uganda, we already benefited more than 30,000 and beneficiaries in Uganda, and we opened a crypto wallet for those 30,000 and beneficiaries, and we collect the crypto fund from all over the world, and we help them to distribute to those end beneficiaries, to the 30,000 girls, 30,000 child in Uganda directly, so that all the people can see the flows on our website, and it's 100% transparent, and we don't take any single penny from that donation. So 100% of the money goes to the people in need. And we also announced a new initiative today that we have just issued a new value stable token, value stable coin on our blockchain. And in the past, a stable token is pegged with the price in US dollar or price in the...
Sorry, I have to cut you on that so that we don't lose the trend of the discussion now.
Yeah.
So basically, and I'm also conscious of time, but if I could sum up what you're saying that the role of the private sector is key in reaching the most vulnerable, leaving no one behind. It's facilitating transparency.
Yeah.
In other words, you can be able to track aid flows to communities, and also the whole issue about reducing intermediaries. In other words, you try to cut back the middle and try to get more to the people on the ground.
Yes.
Right. So yeah, I need to cut you on that so that I can get to the next person, because I'm conscious of time and I don't want to miss the BA either. All right, so Neil, I know you've made a beautiful presentation, and you're coming from Kenya as well. And I think Kenya is on top of a lot of technology, so I know you'll perhaps be talking about M-Pesa and others. But I just want you to take a much more global view, or Africa view, on how, from where you sit, how do you see us connecting much more strategically to the SDGs, to the fourth industrial revolution? Of course, as a financial inclusion person, I'm sure you'll tackle that, but just maybe some much more broader perspectives from where you sit will be appreciated.
Yep. So yeah, when I look at the UN goals in general, what I think about is there are goals that every government should have, and any institution that wants to improve the life of people should actually have. So I think about one of the biggest goals there being work and economic growth in that sense, which means if you really want to improve the lives of people, whether you want to free them from hunger, or, you want to give them opportunities to go to school, and you want to create a gender balance in that regard, you really want to give them the chance to be able to support themselves. And technology in a lot of ways improves people's lives. So you want to give these people opportunities to actually have jobs. If you step on the necks of young industries, whether it's blockchain, whether it's AI, as a government or bigger institutions, you actually reduce the ability of these people to come up and test ideas. Nothing is perfect when you try it, but an iteration by hundreds and thousands of different people can come up with something nice. I mean, the phone has been around for years, but it took until Kenya tested the USSD component to enable financialization using an old technology, USSD. So all I'm saying is, in general, you look at blockchain, you look at crypto, you look at AI, you look at software engineering all around. If you let people actually go out there and do what they need to do, if you give them opportunities to try out, to work in startups, then even if the chances that they may disrupt an older institution, there's actually a better chance that the society as a whole will improve as a result. So that's how I look at it. That creates jobs, that gives meaning to people's life, to know that they have opportunities that they can pursue.
Let me ask just a very quick follow-up question. Sure. I think you've talked about a very important point on the need for us to invest. Now, where should we be investing? I mean, you talked about testing ideas. Should we be providing financing for testing those ideas? I mean, what is the kind of investment Africa needs to do to build those connections?
I honestly think that Africa should create a framework that allows investment per se. Governments don't know how to invest very well, but they're good in laying down the rules. You should not, break the law. You should not do this. They are very good in that. They can enforce the police. They can provide security. But it's up to us, the private sector in general, to say, hey, I want to trade with so-and-so in a certain way. I want to use blockchain instead of a database. I want to send an email instead of sending a physical mail. I want to try and link trucks together on an app instead of trying to call up every trucking company and make this happen. So it really comes down to us. The only thing that we should expect of the government is to create the foundational layers, the rules, and the security that we need to have these things happen.
Good. I mean, I think that buttresses the point that you raised earlier on, Silas, on the need to create an enabling condition. Now, again, because of time, I'm not going to go a second round per se, but I hope I can allow maybe one or two questions from the floor directly to the panelists, or if you feel you have an idea of how we can strengthen the connection between the Sustainable Development Goals and the fourth industrial revolution. Now I would want to hear that as well, and we can pass on the message to our UN colleagues as well to see how we can push that agenda forward much more strategically. I think I would just take about two questions, and that's about it, and I'll try to wrap up very quickly in the interest of time. I see one hand up there, and okay, and I think you're one of the judges or something like this? No, you aren't. Okay. Can I have a lady for gender purposes? I need to be promoting that as well. A lady? All right, we have two gentlemen. Okay.
Hi, Helen. My name is Brian. I was just hoping you could finish your point on the stable coin. Maybe just explain what that is, how it works. Is it backed by gold? I just thought that was really interesting, and I'd like you to finish it. Thanks.
So this is to Athena. This question is to Athena. Okay. All right. I think the microphone is coming to you. Here in front.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My name is Eric Annan, so I guess we're all from the same country, but I see myself to be more African. Thank you very much on this discussion. My point is this, not so as a question, but as a contribution. I think UN should look at its own activities. Enough of the petty advancement. Africa need aid. Africa need this. Africa actually don't need aid. So I'm actually challenging you so I can extend this message to UN. What Africa needs is collaboration, investment in areas, because we own our continent, and we know that 65% of what the world needs is from Africa. 3 months ago, I saw a video where a UN security in Dr. Congo was actually smuggling gold. This is UN. That's supposed to protect them. They're just smuggling gold. Yes, it's on video. I can show you. If you challenge me, I can show it here.
No, I'm not challenging you.
Yes. So I'm saying that the time has come for us to begin to set hard discussion, begin to raise hard consciousness across the continent. Africa don't need aid. What Africa needs is the mindset of the continent. We are not poor. US should stop, we need aid. Aid, we don't need it. What we need is actually reinvestment. You need our resources, come on the table. With blockchain, we can tokenize African resources on a blockchain. So we can now trade with value, not on the table of begging. That's my position as an African. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so I would allow Athena to respond to the question, and I would respond to the UN question.
Thank you for the question about the stablecoin. So actually, people know that there are too many misconceptions about blockchain and crypto. People think that why crypto cannot really achieve the massive adoption over the world. Only maybe less than 10% people now understand what's crypto and using crypto. This is because that people always think cryptocurrency can only be used for trading, but that is not the case. Because people can send the crypto to overboard, with a very low cost, which can really accelerate the financial inclusion. So the new stablecoin we are introducing is not a stablecoin which is pegged with a US dollar or euro or British pounds. Instead, one stablecoin is pegged with a value, is pegged with a good. So with one token, you can redeem the 1-year sanitary pass for one African girl, or one, a lunch for one African child. So that is the new stablecoin that we want to introduce to go back to the essence of money, which is the exchange of the value. We want to establish a platform which can enable the value transfer instead of only the money transfer. So I think that is the true essence of the crypto and blockchain, and it's also the beauty of the whole blockchain system that we can bring to the people. So that is, yes.
All right, so let me speak in my capacity as a UN and my capacity as an African as well, and for that matter, a Ghanaian. I think you're connected to that. First, I have to say that the UN Charter, don't see the UN as a separate thing. The UN is what the governments have established, including Uganda, Ghana, Nigeria, okay? So it's not something that you should see as a separate thing, because if you begin to see it as a separate thing, then you say they are. In fact, it is us. All right? So it's a shared responsibility by all. So I wouldn't even look at the UN from the dimension you're looking at it. The charter of the UN itself is one that promotes country ownership. It's the one that respects the rights of countries. So it is not something that you can look, the UN says this. No, in fact, the principle of the UN is that we respect the rights of the countries and the sovereignty of countries. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. It's a misperception from that point of view. The second point is that the UN is not pushing for, in fact, the UN is not even a donor in that sense, okay? Ours is a facilitative role. In other words, if you find a UN person here in Uganda or some other country, it's really much to provide the support that the country has asked for. So we don't intervene on our own accord, we intervene on the basis of what the government is seeking for. So if you take a country like Uganda, for example, we do have what we call the United Nations Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework. So cooperation is the word, and collaboration. It is not a master-servant relationship. It's absolutely wrong, okay? So I don't want people to live with a misperception. I know people clap, and of course, they have the right to, but it's important that we see the UN as a partner in development, as a partner, but the ownership is on the government. The people, they take the full responsibilities, and ours is just to support, so see that. Having said that, and coming back to the issue of what we're talking about in the fourth industrial revolution, the Secretary General himself has been pushing that agenda very strongly and has promoted with the member nations, now digital sort of strategies. And many of our agencies, including the United Nations Development Program, we've also started looking at the issues of blockchains, AIs, and all the other things, because we believe that the development agenda cannot be tackled and the complexity thereof without looking at the fourth industrial revolution. So in the spirit of that collaboration, the spirit of that partnership, we're here to support. And I think that, of course, I don't know the case you're talking about, and I'll be happy to look into it and to discuss it. But sometimes things happen, and it may be mistakenly equated to the UN, and that might not be the case. But even where there may be issues, there are ways to which we address it through very stringent safeguards measures to make sure that we are there to protect people and we are not there to infringe on the rights of people. And therefore, whatever actions, when it does happen, there are actions and measures in place to tackle that. So I thought I would just try to clarify that. But perhaps just to maybe wrap up the discussion, because I know the beer is waiting, I just wanted to take some final reflections from you panelists. If there is any final reflections, just 30 seconds, anything that you want to say to close the chapter in terms of the links between SDGs and the fourth industrial revolution.
I'll just get started and close off. So I'll probably just reiterate what I'd said earlier, that in my opinion, that those goals are really what every government should have in that sense. To improve people's life, you need to give them jobs and also build economic capabilities. These are just tools at the end of the day. It's similar to someone who goes to a farm. If he has a tractor, he can do more. But if he has a shovel only, he can do less. So we need to enable such tools to actually bring out the best in what we can do as humans.
Yeah, I think, to be very briefly, I think Africa is no longer the follower of the first industrial revolution anymore. Instead, Africa is now the shaper of the new revolution. So I think what is the most important thing I want to stress is about the partnerships. So we really want to call for partnership from both the government and also the private sector. All the people who work on that matter can collaborating together, and together we can make the world a better place, I believe.
Good. And Silas, any final words from you?
Yeah, probably the last thing I could emphasize a lot is the issue of human capital. For instance, if you imagine what was presented on Hyperloop, imagine if Hyperloop were to come here tomorrow, how much of the staffing would be Ugandan? So if we don't prepare for these technologies, basically we would have a problem whereby the bulk of the staffing will be outsourced out there, and this is something we've experienced with the work we've done. We've built a satellite tool for UBOS that they'll use to basically use satellite imagery to gather official statistics. And at the stage we are in of handing over, there is that challenge of how to transfer the AI technologies that we've built. So the element of human capital development comes in very handy, and that can't really be overemphasized. Thank you.
Friends and colleagues, just wrapping up in 2 minutes, just wanted to thank the panelists and try to sum up some of the key things coming out of our conversation. 4 points I picked. One is the need to create an enabling environment. The private sector can invest, but the governments need to put in place the right regulatory, legal, financial sort of instruments to support the work. The second one is on the need for stronger partnerships between public and private sector, partnerships amongst private sector and civil society, research institutions, and I think that's something that we need to promote. Partnership between also some of the companies, technology companies, in fact, also with the United Nations. We've also talked about South-to-South cooperation, the importance of it, and I can see that, you facilitated Uganda to Ghana, and we, as part of our South-to-South cooperation strategy in the UN, that's something that we encourage very strongly, that countries can learn amongst themselves. It's much more effective. And finally, they need to prepare. I mean, the new age of technology is here with us. We don't want to be left behind. We want to prepare and invest in that. So this is a summary I take from our discussions this evening. And from our side, as the United Nations, we're here to support you. We're here to facilitate work that you're doing. And in fact, in Uganda here, we not only have the Pulse Lab, we also have the Accelerator Lab that UNDP is also launching to look into some of these things. Other colleagues in UNICEF, FAO, and others, we're all working together as a UN country team to push that agenda forward. So once again, I would like to thank you very much for putting this on the table here, and we look forward to deepening the discussions and deep diving into segments of it as part of our collaboration moving forward. And once again, thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much, Elsie, for championing this and keeping us engaged and making us believe this UN is not a foreign entity. It's present, it's us, and whatever you think needs to be done, the UN is your place to be. Ladies and gentlemen, for 8 minutes, about 45 minutes out of your time to the end. We've gone by 45 minutes. What a day. Extremely engaging, extremely packed. And if we were to check how intelligent you are with regard to matters of blockchain, artificial intelligence, machine learning. Okay, that microphone needs to become an expert. It was only meant for the presidents, so probably you can come and we share this microphone. But yeah, it's been powerful, it's been fun-packed. I heard that the people in FinTech want another session. It is possible. We just need to make sure you can mobilize the resources to bring us back. We will come. So feel free, the FinTech guys, besides you're the money people.
The disruption has been
sorted. Yeah.
Well,
so what has been your key takeaway? Remember, it's beer.
Wow. I mean, all has been said. The fourth industrial revolution is actually here. Need I say more, Michael? Everything has been said about this and only confirms that you and I have to be ready. Now, when we say that we're preparing Africa for the fourth industrial revolution, it sounds far-fetched, but Africa is you, Africa is me. How have you prepared for this revolution? How have you upskilled? I mean, are you preparing yourself from wherever you are? Like we have seen from all the presentations, we need this technology in every aspect of our lives, every aspect of our work life. And one of the issues that has actually stood out is the fears of us losing our jobs, AI taking our jobs. And tomorrow, most interesting, is one of the issues to be tackled is the future of work. And I think that's quite interesting. You need to ask yourself, am I prepared for the future? What's the future of my job? Will I still have a job? Yes, you will if you prepare yourself. If you don't, Sophia will take your job.
Okay, so Kwambe, there was, we are very smart at conspiracy. The first conspiracy was that Sophia was denied a visa. You dispelled that and you said it was a disease related to a kind of environment. And then there was a gentleman who was ready to propose to Sophia. So he feels cheated. Will there be an opportunity tomorrow for this gentleman to propose to Sophia over the live link? So ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to bring this to a close. And my parting shot.
Not just like that, Michael. There's an important session coming up next. the most important for this day?
Yeah, I'm closing here because the next session I have no control over. Yeah. Okay, so from me, it's been awesome having you as our guests and for us to host you. I truly appreciate your resilience, your patience, but most importantly, your keenness to learn on what is possible in the fourth industrial revolution. I want to thank you very much, and over to you, Catherine, your parting shots.
Well, mine is just to thank you so much for being a very interactive audience, and thank you for your participation. See you all tomorrow, but before tomorrow, we have an interactive session that's happening, a networking session happening there. Have a good evening and see you tomorrow, 7:30.